Hello, wonderful viewer. Welcome back for mission number 3 of the Terran campaign. Moving right along here. So this mission was actually kind of difficult to get started, and this was actually the first mission I programmed for. This was, out of all the missions, this is the one I kind of downloaded first and tried to program for, just to kind of see if the entire process was possible. And honestly, it's probably my favorite missions out of the original 2 Terran campaigns. I'm a really big fan of the Terran versus Zerg matchup. I think it's a very interesting matchup, and I'm a big fan of going bio as Terran. I really like the Marine Medic combination. So this mission is a little unique in the fact that you don't start with any units, technically speaking. There are a couple of units here, and this little island is actually where your start location is. But you only see that if you view the mission in the start editor. There's also little invisible satellite dishes here that do the reveals of the different bases around the map. So this was a little tricky because I needed the bot to initialize correctly, because I needed things like the list of bases on the map, resources, choke points, those kind of details need to be initialized at the very start, but I couldn't actually run any code until the dropship lands, Terran gets out, and then you acquire all of these buildings and units. So it was a bit tricky to figure out, and eventually I just landed on the bot initializes, but then hits a pause button and doesn't run any of the rest of the code until we have a command center, in our unit list. So this mission is all about killing the various hives around the map. There are 4 of them. Each base has kind of like a theme to it. Brown is all about basic units. It attacks you with Zerglings, Hydralisks, and it has a couple of Mutalisks involved, but not many. It's mostly ground-based forces. And the one directly to your left is purple. This one attacks you with primarily Mutalisks as well as Hydras, and this base is unique in the fact that it's on technically an island, as there's no natural ramp to get up to this base up here. So this requires either the easy solution is just to park a couple of siege tanks on the low ground and just shell the hive up here, or the way we're going to do it is drop ships, which was a lot of fun to program.
Base is under attack.
But yeah, so initial game, much like the previous mission 1, early game is just build up our economy, slowly add Marines and Medics on as we build out. We get upgrades going once we can support it. And once we start producing enough Marines and we have our bases situated with plenty of SCVs going, we'll start moving out on the map to secure and destroy. The remaining 2, this top right base for Orange, its theme is completely air units. It has it's not Devour, Guardians, sorry. Misremembered the name. It has Guardians as well as Mutalisks that it'll attack with. This one's probably the easiest to engage, even though Guardians attack very well into bio. There's just simply not enough of them to hold back the tide. And then the final base is red. This one has probably the scariest tech. It has Ultralisks as well as Defilers that actively use Dark Swarm, which, if you don't know, Dark Swarm is a little cloud spell that can be cast on the ground, and any unit inside of the cloud is completely immune to range damage, which all of Terran's units, except for the Firebat, deal range damage. So it effectively renders our combat units useless if they get caught underneath it. So the way we tackle this mission is we let our normal hunter units, our bio squads, go out on the map and start clearing the buildings. While that's happening, we'll tech up to a starport. We'll build 3 drop ships, fill them up with smaller drop squads, and then we'll come up here, drop them, take out purple, and then after the mission is complete, we have to bring Terran up to this special building up here, plant him on this circle, and then the mission is complete. Honestly, this is a very enjoyable campaign mission. I like the different themes of the different Zerg bases. They do a decent job of kind of attacking you at different angles, keep you on your toes. There's a nice little natural expansion back here with a few minerals, another geyser. So this mission really is quite fun to tackle. There are, like I said, like very easy strategies to deal with certain bases. Like I mentioned, the siege tanks on the low ground for purple, as well as for brown. You can actually position a bunker, I believe, right here, and the bunker has just enough range to hit the hive. So you can technically kill brown very early on with just a single bunker with marines in it. We're not going to do that. Like I said, this is not an optimized strategy for tackling all of these missions, but it is like a general way that you might see like a normal player go about accomplishing them. You'll notice that there's a different designation for, instead of another hunter unit, a defensive squad is designated as Aegis. So if anything threatens the main base, you'll see an Aegis squad created. It'll come out, it'll try to push any enemy units away or kill any enemy units that are around the main base. This is our primary means of defense, because like I said, units will come from different angles. You'll have Hydralists attack from like over here. You can have units come from this direction, units come from here. Even sometimes they'll sneak Mutalisks around and attack their mineral line over here, or Mutalisks come from this direction. So you really are vulnerable from all sides. There's no one place you can station all of your defenders and be good across the board. It does require a little bit of, intelligent defensive handling. Unfortunately, insanitybot has that logic pre-built in from its 1v1 experience, so that translated very well to the campaign mission, this one in particular. You'll see we've moved down and we've taken this expansion. This is quite interesting because despite the fact that distance-wise this base is so close, you'll see that the way to get there is we have to come over here, up this ramp, all the way around before coming back down. So while this base is being set up, there's a lot of SCVs moving back and forth. And that's because the way insanitybot handles building is it'll queue up a building to construct next. It'll reserve the minerals for it. Once we have close to the amount that we need for that building, it will reserve a space on the map as marked by the blue rectangles, I'm sure you've noticed. And then it'll send an SCV out to that point to build the structure. If the structure is not built within a certain amount of time, the same logic is called again. It grabs a SCV, sends it to that position to build the structure, and then if the structure is built, insanitybot recognizes that, removes it from the list, and then queues up the next building that is needed. So that works in most situations, but in this particular one, because the distance is so vast, insanitybot oftentimes will think that its workers either got stuck or got killed along the way to build a structure, and then we'll send like another one to accomplish the same task. And this is another instance of poor optimization, because probably the better way of doing this is to assign the construction jobs on like a tracked list, and then if a certain amount of frames pass and the job hasn't been done, you can check which SCV is linked to that job, and then see, is that SCV stuck? Is it still en route? Has it reached its point but something's blocking it? Those kind of checks. And that would be a smarter way of doing it. That way you assign an SCV once, and you don't have this behavior of sending multiple SCVs to one spot and losing a bunch of mining time because the ground distance between these two bases is so far away. Again, there's always something to improve, which is both the blessing and the curse of bot development, because anytime you get some time, you can always make optimizations and logic changes, but then, you know, you get caught in that feeling of like the work is never done. So getting our upgrades, we're already at +1 weapons. We'll get +2 or +1 armor as well. I believe on this mission you can get 3/3 upgrades for Marines, which is very good, especially when we start seeing the Ultralisks from Red Base. Fortunately, the Ultralisks from Red Base don't have any upgrades, so even though Ultralisks usually are very hard for, you know, a bio ball to deal with, since they're unupgraded, they're not too difficult to tackle. We're adding on the starport now. Once we get this up and running and we start having some minerals, you'll see them start building those drop ships I mentioned to deal with Purple's base. We get 5 barracks I, 5 racks, and we'll pump on those 5 barracks for pretty much the rest of the mission. And the Aegis squad come over to deal with the Mutalisk swarm. The Aegis squad is the same size like a normal squad, so you'll see if a certain amount of time passes where we don't need a defensive squad, this Aegis 1-1 will flip to a hunter unit and it'll go out on the map. And then if another threat shows up, insanitybot will grab like another squad that's nearby to fill in that role. So at this point of the game, there is a danger of Brown deciding to attack our natural expansion. Half the time, Brown will come down and engage this bunker, and we'll easily deal with that force. But occasionally, it'll decide to come over to our natural and start attacking it. And odds are that we'll probably lose the base because it'll take a while for the Aegis squad to, you know, make its way around this massive ground path to get over and defend the base. Hopefully they just decide to go for the bunker, or maybe they won't attack at all. That is one of the interesting things about coding for the campaigns, is there are subtle differences from, you know, playing one mission over and over again. Like the attacks are semi-predictable, but the specifics are different round to round. So you may understand that around this timing an attack will get sent out, but as far as the location the attack will hit, or like the units in that attack, will kind of vary from mission to mission. So it does require a little bit of general handling, unless you can specifically select the seed that Broodwar selects for the mission. I believe, so there's something called the Chaos Launcher that comes prepackaged with the Broodwar API, and basically what the Chaos Launcher does is it allows you to inject your bot into Broodwar, so that the bot is able to issue commands and run without problem, and it's very easy for, you know, an unlearned individual such as myself to run it without too much issue. But I believe Chaos Launcher actually has a setting where you can select the randomized seed that Broodwar like initiates a match with. So I think if you utilize that, you could probably get a consistent experience from map to map, and that might be a way to, like, you know, truly optimize a mission 1 through 8 experience as fast as possible. Again, I didn't really want to do that. I just wanted to kind of code like a general experience for a bot playing through a mission how a human might. But that is something that is out there if, you know, people are interested in that. So insanitybot selecting targets is kind of interesting, because the behavior I usually observe on this mission is he'll come in and he'll clear out this whole right side of Brown's base, and then once those buildings are clear, he'll move up and he'll start clearing orange, and when orange is dead or nearly dead, he'll move over to red. I think that's just due to the structures being listed in a certain way. I haven't quite dug in far enough to kind of figure it out, but I believe it's because I have a list that's keeping track of the positions we know enemy structures are at. And since insanitybot is programmed to target the closest enemy structures that aren't part of an island, so like, you know, hopefully we don't see him crowding up against these cliffs trying to get to these buildings even though they're so close, but they're not accessible on the ground, so that's why we have the drop squad, speaking of which they're loading up. So I think because this is such a tall map and our main base is near the bottom, I think the distance function is returning an integer, and since position is tracking pixels, the distance between these buildings up here and these buildings on the side, their distance in pixels from the main base is larger than the maximum integer amount, and so it overflows into a negative amount. So like, even though these buildings are technically closer, these buildings back here are registering as a negative distance to our main base, and so those take priority for the bot to target. Again, this is kind of speculation as the author on the outside looking in. Oh yeah, I forgot. So insanitybot knows how to use optical flare. It actively tries to flare any target that's a detector. And so you'll see medics using pretty much all of their energy, blinding every overlord in sight. And you might see this and say, well, that doesn't sound like a smart decision, and it's not, but I'll continue to have insanitybot use optical flare to its utmost, because one, it's hilarious, and two, it's a very fun ability to use, and not a lot of people play around it. So I find immense enjoyment in seeing just a cluster of medics launching flare after flare into a cloud of overlords. There's just something about it that makes me happy. So the optical flare will remain. So you'll notice insanitybot will scan. This is another thing where this is technically not a base according to the map analyzer. The base is up here according to the map analyzer. So when you see scans go off, the scan will be up here and not down here, because insanitybot thinks this is a base. Oh, I apologize. I completely missed the drop that happened. Basically all it does is it loads up those 3 drop ships. It comes up here, it unloads the entire force outside of range of the sunken colonies and defensive units, and then it just marches the 3 squads over to the base and kills it. Purple doesn't have a lot of ground units to deal with a force of, 3 dropship squads attacking the main, so it falls really easily. It just folds. So purple is dead now. These units will remain as I didn't program in a logic to like re-pick up the drop squads and go drop them somewhere else. They'll remain here just in case someone tries to expand to this position. Again, that's just logic that hasn't been resolved as of yet. But yeah, our giant bio ball is slowly growing. We're adding on drop ships with a radiate, really leaning into that SK Terran style of play. And it's really funny because anytime Brown builds a building to the right of its hive, insanitybot will come back, bully it into submission, and then leave. And usually doesn't kill this until red is dead. So, that's it is what it is for this mission. It's, again, not optimal, but I find it amusing enough to not even worry about changing it too much. And he's able to play through from start to finish, and that was the main goal. So here comes an Ultralisk, gets irradiated. Again, it's 0 upgrades, so it melts pretty easily against our 2/2 Marines. We're working on +3 weapons down here. And yeah, we're in full production swing. We got all of our barracks pumping Marines and medics. We have science vessels constantly coming out of the starport. And the science vessel cloud will really start growing, especially because red does not have any anti-air capabilities. So the science vessels will slowly grow larger, and you'll see them start prioritizing killing defilers as well as ultralisks. But honestly, we may just push forward and kill red right now. We certainly have a large enough force to it, although a lot of sunken colonies are, doing their damage. So, the time of this mission completion kind of depends on how well Red uses their the defilers, because if they put down good, I'm going blank on the ability name. If they're putting down good clouds around, like over my units, they will like kill waves and push me back and delay the end from coming. But then occasionally they'll throw it down like behind the fight where like nobody is. And again, the medic's braving forward to blind everything in sight. So if Red is using its defilers in an effective manner, the mission can drag on longer. But if they're using it unintelligently, then we just kind of roll over the base and easy clap. Oh, these are Marines defending this base, and they saw a neutral unit over here they wanted to kill. These units are designed to kill enemy units that are nearby or nearby neutral units, just to like clear out any potential clutter around them. Also because like if we wanted to expand to a base over here, these creep colonies, even though they're technically neutral now, still emit creep that we can't build on, so the squad will go over, kill that, and just make sure we can build without issue. Okay, we did get cleaned up. We killed almost every sunken colony, but I can't imagine this lasting too much longer. So the way insanitybot assigns squads is if a squad has less than the maximum amount of units in the squad, it will sit at home in a defensive posture and wait to be full. And once a squad is designated as full, it's set good to attack. It begins to move out, meet up with the advanced force, and push towards the target. And then we don't assign units to squads that are already out on the map. So like if Hunter 1-1 is out on the map and it's lost like half of its Marines, we don't refill those Marines. We just assign Marines to new squads or squads that are still waiting. And this leads to a behavior you'll see here where there's a lot of squads waiting because they're either missing medics or they're missing a few Marines to finish. And this is another optimization that needs to be kind of fixed, because it leads to a lot of combat units not out on the map, actually fighting the way they're supposed to. This will kind of fix itself once we hit that max supply number. Once we hit like 196, 195, every squad that has combat units is assigned good to attack, and everybody starts moving across the map. So that's kind of a fail-safe to make sure we don't get stuck with like a bunch of squads that are almost done but not quite. Vessels just hanging out. I've noticed this also from time to time. I think they just get stuck waiting for all the squads to get assigned good to attack, and then they'll move out eventually once they kind of think themselves through whatever they're going through. They also don't have any like prime targets. Yeah, so that Ultimalist just got assigned for radiation but immediately killed. The rest of these, now that they're full, they'll come over. They can use defensive matrix or irradiate on any target that's deemed worthy enough. So now that Red is dead, there's only one Zerg Hive remaining, and that's poor Brown. That's been beaten up over and over again and doesn't really have anything, but we'll come over and finish it off. And you'll see that insanitybot's going to take this base as well, as it doesn't think it is taken because the base is up here and not down here, at least according to the map analyzer. But yeah, once this final hive is completed, the bot will pause all other activity, and it will just move Terran up to this location to finish the mission. And this is because there's an interesting behavior where whenever... where are you going to? Interesting. It must think there's still... Yeah, it still thinks there's a hostile structure here, but once it sees that this is neutral, it deems it not a threat, it'll move back to the closest remaining threat, which, yeah, it'll do the same with these. It'll come up here, it'll see these are neutral, and then it'll move down to finish off brown. Anyway, as I was saying, anytime a unit is destroyed, the API will call up a onDestroy event handler, and this normally will clear out, like neutral units like mineral fields or temples, or just neutral structures on the map. And oftentimes in this campaign, when we finish a mission, it will destroy a neutral structure, like this circle here will disappear, or the building that we're going to will blow up. And for some reason, the API really doesn't like it when these triggers blow up a neutral structure. So oftentimes the API will crash when we finish. So in order to prevent that from happening, I pause all activity on the bot, so everybody will just kind of finish the last order they were given, whether that's attack or move or something like that. And then all I do is I loop through all of the comsat stations. I will scan every single scan possible up in this position, simply to give vision for Terran to move up.
Yes, Captain.
Sometimes you're not able to give move commands to some place you haven't seen. It doesn't happen often, but just to avoid that happening, I just queue up every single scan to come up here, just so Terran knows exactly where he's stepping, comes up here, hits this circle, and we're in the final cutscene for the mission. So yeah, that's mission 3. Again, I apologize, didn't see the drop. That was probably the most interesting thing in this mission. I was too busy yapping about other things. But thanks for tuning in. That's mission 3 complete in 26 minutes, 51 seconds. And we're on to mission 4. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.